now as a postdoc at the University of Helsinki, I'm gonna change completely the topic because now we were working on TLS, terrestrial laser scanner. I've been working with a bunch of field ecologists from Brazil, from INPA, and ecophysiologists, remote sensing people. I'm working there with Eduardo Maeda, based at the University of Helsinki. Using with a TLS, basically, like I'm a field ecologist. I'm ecologist, but more recently I've been just like a field ecologist, like looking at trees and measuring things, measuring stuff. And we've got a long-term sampling project using terrestrial laser scanner to investigate the effects of fragmentation on forests. So essentially, we've got this biological dynamics of forest fragments project. It's a very old project. For the past 40 years, people have measured dynamics of these fragmented forests. Lots of papers have come out trying to understand how fragmentation will affect the canopy, will affect the structure of vegetation. And next month, I'm going to Malaysia for the SAFE project again with a terrestrial laser scanner. We are gonna do some measurements in old growth forests and logged area in different stages, but also in fragmented areas to see how the canopy has been affected by fragmentation and logging. And next year we are going to Tanzania as well to do the same thing. So we want to do like pantropical measurements, keeping the same type of sampling with a terrestrial laser scanner to see how fragmentation and logging have been affecting the canopy structure. But as an ecologist, I've been here in Brazil, as I said, for the past months, and I've been asking lots of ecologists, like, what do you think is the most important thing for you that remote sensing can solve? And lots of ecologists, they always come to me and say, like, that would be very interesting to try to find some traits and understanding intraspecific variation. That means within species variation, right? And that would be interesting to use LiDAR, because LiDAR is great. We can have lots of data from LiDAR. And I also agree, and that's what I really want to do. And there are some really interesting papers. If anyone is here from these groups, I would love to talk, I would love to chat. That is quantifying canopy structural traits from terrestrial laser scanner. This package in our Forester R is really cool, but I think we definitely need to develop a little bit more to come out for the use of terrestrial laser scanner, because most of the traits we can get from this, we can analyze from using this package, is based on portable canopy LiDAR. But like currently, what we can, the canopy traits that we can investigate, that we can draw using this package, is area and density metrics of vegetation that are related to photosynthesis and interactions with atmosphere, or canopy height associated with wood production, light interception, but also canopy rugosity. And I think that's very interesting to see how fragmentation will affect these canopy traits. That's like, I think what we definitely need to work on now and understand with repeated measurements. So we are gonna go now. I'm gonna show you a little bit of what I'm doing. We are gonna, so you can wake up a little bit. We are traveling now to South America, and we are going to the Amazon forest. It's an area near 100 kilometers north of Manaus. There's some, we are with this terrestrial laser scanner. It's a Regal VZ400i laser scanner. And essentially we are working on 4 different sites with different transects. But there are one eddy covariance flux tower. It's called LBA flux tower. there's also a continuous forest there where we've been measuring the architecture of trees using canopy, using the TLS. But also, this project called PDBFF in the Amazon, where people for the past 40 years, they isolated fragments, as you can see. And people are trying to understand how this fragmentation, like this experiment of isolation of fragments, will affect the structure of this vegetation. So what I've been doing now, we are just like from the edge to the core of these plots, we are just measuring at a 5 meters grid. That means every 5 meters, I go to one point and I measure using a Regal VZ400i, right? But I've been doing that for the past 6 months, and in different transects. And on this flux tower, which is it's part of the LBA project, it's called KM34 flux tower. I do below and above ground canopy measurements using the TLS, and we've got a bunch of traits, for example, like sap flow, and we really want to do architecture of these trees to associate how sap flow is changing, associated with these changes in architecture. But we also have field data of leaf demography, functional traits, wood traits, soil and air microclimate data. But we also have these fragments, right? As I was saying, we do these transects of 100 meters each with microclimate measurements. Every 50 minutes we got like this really cheap microclimate sensor. It cost like just a few euros, and it's really great. Every 50 minutes we've got a soil moisture, and we've got air temperature data. It's amazing. It's working really well. And every point where we take microclimate measures, we do the TLS measurements as well. From the ground, from the edge of forests to the center, to the core of these fragments. And registration has worked really well. And this is like one of the transects, for example. And this is what we've got. So at a grid of 5 meters, we haven't had any problems registering the data. We don't have reflectors on the field. So it's really, really convenient. It's kind of advertising at the same time, because the product is really good. And we also try to see like whether a 10 meters grid would also work, because we are going to Malaysia and we don't have enough time to do like a 5 meters grid on the ground, but it also worked perfectly. But one problem we are having is with tree segmentation using TLS. It's been really difficult, especially because we found, I want to be a little bit diplomatic, but we found it a little bit like counterintuitive, the segmentation algorithms now. And especially for tropical forests, it's been a little bit difficult because of like the irregular stems and everything. So again, if you can, it would be really nice actually, like you can use our data if you want, but it would be really nice. We've got also field data for these areas with tree measurements and species identification. That would be really good to work together in collaboration, especially because I'm an ecologist. So I find it like very difficult to deal with like this huge amount of data. And about the repeated terrestrial laser scanner measurements. So as I said, I've been on the ground for the past 6 months, right? And every 15 days I go to the same plot over and over again, because I think that's what we need to do now, is to understand how the canopy changes. And my rationale behind it was when I was in Malaysia working with Terry Ryuta, she's from the University of Oxford. They had this amazing data set of net primary productivity there, and they showed that logged forests and primary forests, they have different net primary productivity, which and we want to understand whether and just 1 minute, and we also see that a large portion, a large fraction of this the carbon allocation goes to the canopy, which sometimes we foresters, we ecologists, we remote sensors, we sometimes forget how important the canopy is for the whole balance of carbon. And there was a more recent paper from Marielle Smith and co-authors showing, she was doing repeated LiDAR measurements at the also in the Amazon, but in secondary vegetation, and they showed that there was an increase in leaf area index at the during the dry season, which is kind of like counterintuitive, right? And it goes, and but it also aligns with this idea that the forest, the Amazon forest, is greening up during the dry season. Found that during the dry season, there was an increase in LAI, but it decreased following the onset of the wet season. But very interesting things that you can obtain from LiDAR is that upper canopy and below canopy, lower canopy, can have different responses to these climatic changes, right? And this is something that this is like my rationale behind it. That's what I'm doing. I really want to see whether we've got some different responses to climate in the Amazon, in fragmented forests and non-fragmented forests. So that's why I've been doing these repeated measurements. So this was, as I said, I'm very new to, I've been working with LiDAR only for the past 3 years. Everyone here has way more experience. But as a field ecologist, as an ecologist, this is a great opportunity to share my views, like how TLS can revolutionize lots of areas in ecology. And when you go to the field, for example, you can really see indeed, when I was there, for example, at the start of the drought in July, I could see lots of like leaves, they were flushing and new leaves coming out. And I was like, I think that's true, and probably it's going to be very interesting to see the outcomes of this LiDAR data. So, thank you very much, and that was it.